Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Tonight, I am very excited because I've got an awesome guest here. I've got the Malted Man Cave, Keith, on. Keith, say hi.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on, Bill.
No problem. That's pretty awesome. So Keith and I were having conversations over the last week when, Keith actually chose to check his phone. we were averaging about one email a day. And we were trying to figure out which whiskey we should review, and there were a couple of times I was literally like standing in the liquor store just taking pictures or whatever and trying to find out what to do, and we ended up deciding on the classic Laddie from Bruichladdich. And the reason that we did this, at least from my point of view, is I obviously haven't reviewed it. Keith suggested it as something good to drink, and I thought it would be fun actually to go on a bit of a whiskey journey with somebody else who knows more about this particular dram than I do. And I thought that'd be pretty fun. So Keith is going to talk a bit about Bruichladdich, talk a bit about the dram here, and we're going to drink together. And just to prove it, I haven't even opened this thing. So, Keith, you got your bottle handy?
Yep. Let me go ahead and pour out a dram.
Cool, I'll do the same.
Close to the bottom, actually.
Yeah.
So what do you know about Bruichladdich?
Well,
I don't claim to know everything about Bruichladdich, by the way. I just love it.
Yeah. Well, so funny thing, I am having such a tough time opening this. There we go. All right. I always have trouble when I open these things on streams. So anyway, I actually it was kind of like a whiskey tasting at Julios Liquors, which is a place near me that does a lot of whiskey stuff. And they had some people from Bruichladdich out there. And they brought a bunch of stuff, including I think it was one of the dark arts, right? They do that.
Yep.
And we got to taste. I think it was the 5, because the 4 is like super hard to get, and the 6 isn't out yet. Is that correct, or is the 6 out now?
I'm actually not sure. I don't have enough to drink it. I only have enough to review it, but I have the Black Art 1990. Let's see, what is the edition? It just says 1990.
Yeah, that looks like a different style of bottle than I've seen before for the Black Art.
These are amazing. Did you say you've tried these yet?
I tried the 4 when I was actually out at the Whiskey Vault out in Austin. Somebody had a bottle of the 4 and was just like, "Hey, Bill." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm a big fan of your show. Do you want to drink this?"
Did you like it?
It was so good. It was so good. It was probably definitely in the top 5 of the drams I tried out there. I just was running through them in my head, and there were a few that were just incredible. One of them was Octomore. I want to say it was, I could be totally wrong here. It was like, is there a 10.3 or was it an 8.3? Maybe it was 8.3.
They have a ton of different, like 8.1, 7.1, 8.3. 8.3 is my favorite.
I think it was the 8.3 because I don't think it was the 10. And I've mentioned 10 to somebody else, and they're like, "What are you even talking about?" So I think it must have been the 8.3, and that was a really, really good one as well. So let me just take a minute to say hey to some of the people in the chat here. I'm sure you've recognized a lot of these names. I see you hanging out in these chats a lot when we're all drinking together. So Eric, hey, what's going on? Triple Cap, go Habs. Ken, Josh, Craig, DJ Beacon. Sorry, I always read your name as DJ Bacon, which is way better. So I apologize if DJ Beacon is your name, but you will forever be DJ Bacon to me.
DJ Bacon. Sounds amazing.
We got Donner Passes in here. All right, we got a lot of the usuals. This is pretty great. All right, so are you ready to kind of dig into this guy?
Absolutely. One of the big reasons why I love Bruichladdich is, so they were kind of a victim of the 90s. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much like the Scotch industry historically has gone through boom periods and then recessions when like half the distilleries have to close. And I think, I think they've been open and shut a couple of times. Mm-hmm. But I think 1994 was the last time they had to, mothball the distillery. And then I think it was 2000, 2001, Mark Rainier, and then Jim McEwen, who's pretty famous. He worked at Bowmore for like 40 years as a master blender. They decided, and it's crazy because he was like close to retirement age. And he decided to just go all in like the last couple of years of his career. And he opened up this awesome distillery, and I don't know if it's because he didn't like how they always did things at Bowmore, but he decided to do everything like craft distillery. So they don't chill filter, higher ABVs. They just do everything right. And the one thing I love is that they're all about transparency. Mm-hmm. So if you look at your bottle,
okay.
Let's see, towards the back, the very bottom, you should see a code in black.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah.
I'm hearing a little echo. Do you hear that?
Oh, yeah, that's probably me. I moved my mic a little closer to the. All right, that's probably a little better.
Just want to make sure it wasn't on my end.
No, let me know. And people in the chat, let me know if it gets bad too.
So you can plug that code into their website, and it literally will have a breakdown of like every single cask that they've, like American Oak from Buffalo Trace, American Oak from Jim Beam, and then they'll have like, red wine cask from Bordeaux. Like, it is absolutely unbelievable. Like how
that's really cool. That's a very cool thing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to look that up after the show. So here's a question, and no issue if you don't know the answer. Why is it blue?
I knew. I watched like a distillery tour at some point, and I think it had something to do with the ocean.
Yeah,
close to Bruichladdich, right off the coast. Like, it has a hint of turquoise. I think when the light shines on it at a certain time of day.
I think you're right. I remember that from that tasting. The guy did say that. He said it was the way that the color of the ocean looking out from some window in the distillery or at one of the buildings or something like that. Or maybe just the color of the ocean near their distillery, whatever. I don't know. I think you're totally right, though, which is weird to think of. I always think of Scotland as being like a way darker blue color, but oh well.
I don't think most of the water looks turquoise like that. No, I love the bottles. The only thing I think some of the bottles, they actually have like a little line so you can see where the whiskey is. That's the only reason it kind of frustrates me. It's because you don't know how much is in there. Like, even for this review tonight, I was like, I think I have enough for a full drink. And I was saving this to do a review, but this is
looking at this, I'm almost wondering if you just had a defective label. Because this is, like, for those of you that can't really tell, this is very clearly just a wrap, right, that they put on this thing. And there's a seam down the side, and I'm almost wondering if your seams were just separated. But who knows? Wow, a lot of people in the chat all of a sudden. This is great. Well, welcome to everybody. So one person asked if the Signet was worth it. In my opinion, I loved it, but that's a lot of money to spend on a whiskey, so that's your call. I loved every penny of it, though. So, all right, let's nose this thing because it's a Friday and I'm waiting to drink. So,
cheers.
Cheers. Or yeah.
One thing, I don't know if you pick it out. The echo is really bad. Do you hear that? And I think Eric White said it's on my end, which I'm kind of.
I was gonna say I don't hear an echo from you. I haven't seen too many people complaining about it. I've got the mic pretty far away, but
Keith's laptop sound is on. Okay, then I will.
Yeah, you don't have your you don't have the video on in the background.
No, YouTube is muted. YouTube.
Okay, I've done that before.
I will definitely pull on a noob move. Apparently,
that's okay. Doing the hangouts with each other. So I know you'll be able to relate to this, and several of the other people out here who do whiskey reviews as well. The fact that you can't upload a custom freaking thumbnail on a Google Hangout, I hate that. Like, I made this awesome thumbnail for our thing here, and then I realized, like, you can't do Google Hangouts through OBS very easily. It's a lot of times it just loses connection, or it's like that extra little bit of buffer and lag just kind of screws it up. And so I just did a regular Google Hangout instead of the OBS. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Why do they do that? Like, it's such a simple thing. Why would they not?
You'd think. I know. I probably go on go on Twitter and bother that Team YouTube group like probably once or twice every few months and just like, let us upload custom thumbnails. But I think they're just fiddling too much with the beta at the moment to do anything. I'm very excited to see whatever they do with the live with the beta, but we're probably boring people. So so what are you getting out of the nose here? Because to me it's very sweet. I know we kind of talked about this off air, but I don't mind making myself sound a little dumb here. So I was under the impression that this was a peated whiskey until Keith so nicely put it. Well, so if you look at the back of the bottle where it says unpeated.
In your defense, sometimes people say depending on the water that they use, there could technically be a little bit of peatiness, just from like the streams and the dirt that the water comes in contact. Sometimes unpeated whiskeys can have a slight bit of ppms. But yeah, so for me, the reason that I really like Bruichladdich is there's two distilleries that I get a very distinct note on the nose and on the palate, and it's uncooked sugar dough cookies, that you make for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I get that with Springbank, and I get it with Bruichladdich, and I love it.
I
can't get enough of it.
I love that. I love that. Like, you're able to say that, and my brain can interpret. Like, I smell this now, and I'm just like, Yep, totally know what you're talking about. I probably wouldn't have said it myself because I'm not great with the overly descriptive descriptors. Yeah. I tend to have to think about the way that things that I smell in there might be combined. I know I talked about this on one of the videos one time. I was like I smell coffee and I smell cream and I smell like chocolate and vanilla. So it's like tiramisu. So I was like, it smells like tiramisu. So I don't know. The whole thing is silly.
I remember when I first got into whiskey and I, watch YouTube videos and watch Ralphie or, whoever. And I thought people were full of crap when they were like getting like 20 different notes. I was like, I get 2.
Right.
Like, there's no way. But the more I drink it, the more I can slowly pick it out. I don't know. That's part of why I love it. I just love. Yeah. I love whenever I get a new bottle, I sit down and I pretty much watch every YouTube reviewer of note just to see if I agree with the tasting notes. I don't know. It's just why I love it.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I find myself not doing that specifically until after I've done my review because I feel like it could influence me too much.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times where I'll just simply be like, so I did a video. It was on Wednesday actually on the Woodford Reserve malted something or other, malted whiskey. Sorry. And it has so many weird things going on. So I made my notes and then I went and looked at a couple of other people and people were just, once again, all over the map because it's just the weirdest smelling stuff. I wouldn't suggest you buy it, but if you can ever get your hands on just a dram to try it, it's a weird nose and taste all around.
One thing I'll say about this bad boy is it's mostly when I looked up the code, I bought this probably a year ago. Mm-hmm. It's a majority of bourbon barrel maturation, and then I think there's some red wine cask actually mixed in. Okay. Very, very few. I probably like 10% of it is red wine cask. Most of it's the bourbon, which comes through. This is not necessarily my favorite. This is probably their lower end, but it's still for $40-50. It's fantastic whiskey.
Yeah,
it's at 50% ABV.
Mm-hmm. I paid a little bit more than that, but the place that I go to is it's expensive, but they have everything, so it's kind of a trade-off. I find myself going there more often than other places. Like if I can go to Total Wine, I'll go there because they're the cheapest in my area. But if I need something that I just can't find anywhere else, I'll go to Julios, and they always have it. But it'll be almost a 10-15% markup over anybody else. So.
Now, where do you live again?
I live in Massachusetts.
Nice. What part?
Where are you?
I'm in Ohio.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm in like central Massachusetts.
Columbus and Cincinnati-ish. Dayton.
Yeah. So if anybody watching has any concept of Massachusetts, I'm in Northborough, but it's kind of like halfway between Worcester, closer to Worcester, and Boston. So it's central Massachusetts. So. I'm
still hearing the echo. I have not touched any of my settings since the last time I did
have you heard it the entire time, or did it just come back?
I'm not really even sure. It's just.
You know what I'm going to do? Just in the off chance it is me, I'm going to turn down my volume just a little bit. Go ahead and say something.
Okay.
All right. So I can still hear you fine, but hopefully that helps with the echo. Are people talking about the echo, or is it just you that's hearing it?
Just at one point, I think Kenneth Canaldi said something. Guys, are you guys still hearing an echo? All right. Eric Waite says the echo isn't too bad, so I'll shut up about it.
All right. Let's have a sip of this thing, because I think people are probably like thinking, badly of us. All right. So cheers to you, Keith. So for everybody here, I'm just going to say Keith is about 150 subs away from 1,000. And once you hit 1,000, a lot more stuff opens up for you in YouTube. So if anybody out there is even at all interested, it's worth a sub. So cheers to you, Keith, and you hitting 1,000.
Cheers to you, buddy. Thank you. That's kind of you.
No problem.
I was telling him off camera, I was like, buddy, you've done 100 bottle reviews, and I've done 100 bottle reviews. How the heck do you have 30K and I only have 900-ish? You got to teach me the secrets of the fire swamp, buddy.
Oh, no problem. So Keith and I are going to have a chat offline because the rest of you can't know the secrets of how the hell I got so lucky. So, total luck. That is fantastic. Holy crap, that's good. You picked a good one.
I love the saltiness on this one.
Yeah. This is like, I think a big part of it too, even though we've talked about it, in my brain, I'm still expecting the typical qualities of an Islay, So it's very different. Obviously, it's almost like when I had the Ano for the first time. Like I actually didn't like the Ano because it was not what I was expecting, and I still kind of like. I don't tell people to go buy that one unless they really just want to get an entry thing into peated whiskeys, but. This is just it reminds me of that because it's way sweeter than you expect. You're right, it's got some saltiness going on as well, and just overall like very tasty. And the alcohol burn is virtually non existent. What is this, by the way? 50%. Wow.
Yep.
So even at 100 proof, it's got very little bite to it, which is really nice, well balanced.
I got a little butterscotch on the palate.
I always try to be conscious of having my mouth too close to the microphone because a lot of times I'm just like leaning over this and sipping, and I'll sound like Horst a little bit. Just like.
Now we are going to be drinking Booker's if there's a super chat tonight, right?
There may be some things off camera as per usual. The people in the chat know what takes. There's actually a lot of stuff over there, and some of it might come out. We'll see. So Keith and I actually both have another dram that we picked. We both picked something, and so we'll get to that probably in a little bit as well. But let's see. All right, so people are wishing you luck hitting that 1,000. So you got a couple of subs. Nice. Eric Wade apparently is subbed to you twice with a couple of different accounts.
Thanks, buddy.
Doesn't matter, man.
He is a gentleman and a scholar. Like I think he said earlier in the comments that we're going to be doing reviewing the Octomore together in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And he bought it for me. He literally bought it and like shipped it to me so that I could pick it up. So I will drink to you, Eric. You kind sir.
So, yes, I'll drink as well to Eric. Eric is a gentleman and a scholar, and him and I share a barber. So, I was talking to Keith about getting some of the challenge coins made, just because I think he's got a cool logo and it would totally work on these. So, if just out of curiosity, if anybody in the chat would without doubt buy a coin from the guy, give him a little love in the chat just so he knows, because I got to try to convince him that it's worth it. They're cool to have. It's just fun to have, and I like that you can like collect them all. Like the amount of pictures I've seen on Instagram where a person posts a picture and it's like 10 of the coins or whatever, like a couple from the Scotch Just Dummies and mine and like a few other people. It's just fun to see them all together. I love that it's like a community of that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Eric, I was keeping that secret just because I didn't know if you wanted to tell people, but not necessarily doing what you said. But Eric and I are also going to potentially do a live stream next week on Thursday, maybe from San Diego. And if nothing else, we're going to record a video on a dram that I won't say just in case it's supposed to be a secret. But either way, there'll be some cool stuff coming out of Eric and I next week.
So a couple of people are being very nice. They're saying that they're in for a Keith coin. Several people are saying they just subscribed. I was telling, obviously, we had the conversation off camera. Mm-hmm. I told Bill that I was kind of waiting until people have asked me to do shirts or coins or stuff like that. And kind of in my mind, I kind of planned on waiting to get to 1K subscribers. So maybe if we get there tonight, we'll see.
So how long have you and Dave kind of been doing your thing together?
So I started the channel, I think it's pretty much about 2 years ago. And I just started doing it just because I loved whiskey, and I just loved, back then there weren't as many whiskey channels as there are now. So
yeah,
I was like, I loved it. It's awesome. I have a passion for whiskey. I just want to share it. And then obviously after that, it blew up, and like tons of people have channels now. Mm-hmm. But I think 10 or 12 episodes in, he found out that I was doing. He's like, I want to do it. Now, Dave isn't a whiskey geek. He doesn't have as much the passion for it. He's just one of my best friends, mm-hmm. and he enjoys talking. He's always talked to me about wanting to do a podcast. I was like, well, and he's like, Keith, can I? He pretty much was like, voluntold me he was coming on the channel. So I was like, all right, you can come mooch over my whiskey and be on the channel. So
nice. We
do a question of the night at the end of our reviews. And that's mostly for him, just because he likes to banter and talk about it, and I like it too.
What was your last question of the night, just out of curiosity?
I think that we talked
one that you remember either way.
Who would win the Super Bowl? I think.
Oh, well, the Patriots, of course. Otherwise, I got to drink some really shitty whiskey.
Yeah,
which, by the way,
don't have enough Super Bowls.
I think I have picked which whiskey I'm going to drink. I am going to keep it secret, but I'm going to throw that teaser out there. I was looking at it today. A couple of people who are in the Discord might know what it is, but don't say it in the chat. It does come in a plastic bottle, which should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about it. And it's not Seagram's. So I looked at the label of this thing and I said, boy, they didn't even try.
So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more? Would you describe yourself more as a bourbon or a Scotch guy? If you had to say which one you love more.
So it's funny that you say that, and just kind of going back to that concept of like the how many videos we've done and subscribers and everything. So in my heart of hearts, I enjoy bourbon more, I think, because it's easier to attain. It's usually a little cheaper, so like that's easy. But like if I just got 2 drams at one time, I might get crucified for this. I often find that bourbon is way more complex than most scotches.
Really?
For me, what I have found, especially, and I know they're not Scotch, but like with Japanese whiskey, I find that Japanese whiskey and a lot of Scotches have this one same quality. They pick one thing and they do it exceptionally well. For example, you might have a dram where you taste like, oh, it tastes like, sugar cookies, right? But it'll taste like the best freaking sugar cookie you've ever had, Whereas a bourbon, this is where bourbon falls short for me. This is a way longer answer than I think you were expecting, but still. So with Tyler, thank you very much. When I have a bourbon, I wish that they didn't all just taste like vanilla, caramel, oak, and butterscotch or like a couple of other little things. I wish that more of them had more variety, and that's part of the reason I started doing all those craft distilleries in the US, because a lot of times I find that they really explore a lot more flavors. You know what, I'm gonna kind of rethink my answer for a minute.
Well, here's the deal. I think that a little bit, because they only use, to be a true bourbon, it can only be oak barrels that have never been used before. I think that kind of limits them. I absolutely agree with you. I think Scotch is more complex, but I think if they did more different types of maturation, which they are starting to do, it can't be called bourbon, but I think more North American whiskeys are doing more exploration, and I agree. Some of those are definitely way more complex. And
I'm gonna adjust my answer to match you a little bit more. I think that American whiskey has more potential than Scotch, but I'm not sure that it's there yet. So yeah. I think that's going to be my official answer, which is about as middle of the road as I could go. but I think Scotch to me tends to be more of an event. Like I consider this. Thank you very much, Eric. I consider this to be like a treat. Whereas, I've got some Knob Creek back there. If I'm going to drink Knob Creek, it's because I'm probably going to have a few of them, probably looking to forget how bad my week might have been. Versus this, where it's like, I'm going to sit back. I might have like 2 of these. Not on this stream. I'll have like 7. But, I think it's just for different things for me. So obviously you're more of a Scotch guy, as you were saying. So here's a question. Everybody in the world would ask, like, what's your favorite Scotch? So I'm going to say, what are your top three favorite Scotches? Because that will make you think. Woo! And while you're answering that question, because I got the super chats, I'm going to have a drink of some Bookers here. Because, now, there was a thing I did on my last stream where I combined the 01 and the 03, and I got to tell you, it was so freaking good. I'm going to do it again by choice. Bookers is amazing. So top 3 Scotches. It doesn't even have to be like of all time. Just things that come to your mind as things that people should try.
Top 3. So I've had the opportunity to try Port Ellen, which is a closed distillery that often go for thousands of dollars for a bottle. I've had Brora, that Roy from Aquavite allowed me to try, which was amazing. But I didn't get enough. I just had like 1 to 2 drams of each to really say it's my favorite. So I would say Springbank 16 Amontillado is up there. I just reviewed Klein Leash 1995-25 Signatory Cask Strength is up there. Man, this is tough.
Yeah.
What would I put for my last one? Highland. All right. So I wish Highland Park 25 was more affordable, but it is phenomenal. Have you ever had the chance to try it?
I have not tried. I've considered buying it so many times for like pretty much every time I see it, because it's how much does it cost? It's a few $100s, but it's not like absorbent, right?
It goes anywhere from 500 to 1,000.
Okay, maybe I have good prices near me. I'm thinking about it, but maybe Is there a Highland Park 20?
There's a Highland Park 21 that's discontinued now, I think.
I don't know. Either way, I've looked at the Highland Park 25 and seriously considered buying it a few times. The problem is I've only done the 18, and I'm like, I might as well do the 12, the 15, and a few others before I get up to the $600 or $700 bottle. So, speaking
of Highland Park 15, he was saying we were trying to come up with some other whiskeys to talk about after we talked about the classic Laddie. And yes. He'd show me that he had that because he's like, I don't have that many scotches. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a good one that you have there, because obviously people know that that's discontinued and you can't really find it. I don't think I've ever tried that. And I've had pretty much everything in the HP core lineup except for that. Is it good? I know you don't want to reveal your hand too much if you haven't reviewed it yet. But.
Short answer, absolutely. It's very good. I've only drank probably just pretty much a little past the shoulder, actually. I probably had about 4 drams or maybe 3 drams of this. I don't remember a whole lot about it. You can now relate it after doing 100 reviews as well. Well, here's a question for you. When you're out, Lagavulin 16, I don't have that, Kenny. When you're out shopping, do you buy things that you like, or do you buy things that you've never tried before so you can review them?
So many friends of mine in the whiskey tube community get on me because I am not as tactical. I am not as thought out and calculated as others are. And it's to my chagrin, really. I don't probably do as well because I don't. I was in the phase for a long time. I just wanted to try every possible thing that I could. So I'd get every 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old. And I think I'm kind of at the point now, I still want to try everything, but I'm starting to focus more on the high end because I find myself buying all these whiskeys and I like them, but I don't love them. And then I'm like, man, I spent all this money. But I think it was worth it to kind of educate my palate. I don't know. I want to be one of those guys that pretty much knows everything about every Scotch distillery. Like, I want to know, oh, this tastes like this or this tastes like that. No, I'm not there yet, but I would love to one day.
It's a good thing to aspire to. I always tell my friends and stuff when I'm telling them about the channel, I'm like, if you ask me the week that I did the review, I know everything there is to know about that whiskey that week, and then by the next week, I usually forget a good chunk of it. I usually know enough to have a conversation about it in the future, but if you asked me, like, I'm just trying to think, like, what 40 Creek Copper Pot still tastes like, I'd be like, well, I remember I liked it, and it was good for a Canadian whiskey, but, like, it was... You know, like, I couldn't tell you much about it other than it probably tasted like fake caramel.
So let me real send it back to you. What are your top 3?
Scotches or bourbons or what?
Either.
Good question. You know what? Let's go Scotches because that's harder, and I've had significantly fewer of them. So, you know, my list will be not nearly as impressive as yours. Actually, they'll probably be more affordable. You know what? I'm gonna go completely the other way because I'm thinking about like my top, you know, nice ones, and they're not impressive. So I'm gonna go more like the ones that I think people should actually try, kind of like lower end stuff, like Glenmorangie 12 or the 15. Like, those are affordable. I always thought that Glenmorangie was kind of like an underdog, or like more people should try that, at least getting into Scotch, especially the 12, because it's like super cheap. It's probably like $25 or $30 tops.
I agree with you.
I liked I'm giving crappy answers. This is a tough question. You're right. It is hard. I just totally more skirted the question.
Because I know as soon as we get off camera, I'm going to think of 3 more whiskeys that I think are way better than the 3 that I just told you. And I'm going to dang it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to go with the ones I like. So I love the Bourbon 14. I will order that all the time if I go to a bar and I see it.
It's a classic. It's a great.
Yeah, and I had a bottle of that for a while, and just I loved that one. That one was, when I started the channel, I said that was going to be one of the ones I reviewed. I really liked I loved that Octomore 8.3. That was incredible. But I'm trying to more think of things that people can actually get. I want to pick a third one here. So the Highland Park 18 was a standout for me as well.
If that was at cast strength.
Yeah.
Wow. That was
a really good one.
Amazing at 43%. Imagine how much flavor you would get at cast strength with the same cast, whatever they use for the normal 18. That would be a phenomenal whiskey.
Absolutely. I worry a little bit that I've got a skewed vision of the Highland Park 18 because I had kind of it's like the same thing. If you have nostalgia for something, it doesn't matter if it sucks. Like some of the old NES games, like you go back, you play them, they're like, it's actually kind of sucky, but you love it, you know? But like the Highland Park 18, I got that actually as a gift from my boss at a time where I was coming up through the ranks at my job, and we had just finished this like 2-year long project, and we put it out, and it was awesome, and everybody loved it. And he was like, "Here's a bottle of Scotch because I know you like whiskey," and it was, at the time, it was the most expensive bottle of anything I had, and it's funny thinking back on it because 18's what, like $110, something like that, or $100. And it's
actually more than that now. It's probably more like 140, 150 now.
Is it really? Wow. Yeah. I wish I only spent that much nowadays. That I know you can relate to. So what is your what's your most recent purchase?
What is my most recent purchase? I just bought another bottle of Long Row. So if you don't know this already about me, Bill, I'm kind of a Springbank fanboy.
That's okay.
Which I will talk you into buying that Springbank 12 cask strength before the evening's up.
It was so tempting. I had it in my hand too. They have like 5 different Springbanks at that Julios Liquors. It was, yeah.
You're lucky. I have to drive like an hour and a half all the way to Kentucky to get Springbank, but it's worth it.
I could almost walk to this location.
You suck. I'm so jealous. So does Massachusetts have a pretty good selection?
I would say this one place in particular. So that Julios Liquors is apparently, I had no idea when I moved here. Apparently, it's like literally known across the country, not by everybody, of course, but like I've talked to people in different areas of the country, and I'm like, yeah, Julios Liquors. They're like, really? You know, and like they actually know. It's weird to me because it's apparently it's that good, but they really are. They have awesome stuff, and they do events and stuff in their. They have this basement area that they'll do classes, and I actually have a story about Bruichladdich, but you were about to say something more about Springbank, I think.
Oh yeah. So you asked me what bottle I purchased recently.
Oh, that's right.
So
yeah.
the two that I bought most recently were Springbank 12 cask strength. They just came out with the new. I think it's twice a year. I'm pretty sure they come out with a new edition, and so of course I had to get the latest edition. And then they also had Long Row 11 Cabernet Franc, which is delicious. So yeah.
I've noticed that Cabernet barrels have been being used a little bit more frequently lately. I was listening to this is going back to the Julios thing, and I swear this isn't like an ad for Julios. It's just coming up a lot. But if nothing else, they don't give me a deal, but whatever. In their basement, they do classes where they'll have out basically brand ambassadors, and they'll do sampling. So they do this every single Wednesday. So a lot of times I'm there on Wednesdays because first off, it's free whiskey, and I usually network a little bit with the brand ambassador and just kind of figure that out. Nice. Bruichladdich happened to be one of those people one time, and that was I don't remember if I brought it up right at the beginning of this stream. I know you and I talked about it off air, but we did a Bruichladdich tasting, and they had like 5 or 6 different drams, including what is it, the Port Ellen cask or something like that. Yeah. And a couple of other ones.
Port Charlotte.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't Port Ellen.
If it was Port Ellen, man, you better.
I know.
If it was a good price, you better bought the crap out of that right then.
Well, the funny thing, I mentioned the same thing to Scott from Scotch Test Dummies, and he had the exact same reaction. He was just like you didn't buy it? Yeah. But he anyway, so Port Charlotte and a few other ones. And while we were having the drams, the lights cut out. We were having like some sort of a storm or something, and just the power totally went out in the store. And they decided to just kind of keep it going. So everybody just kind of took their phones and turned on their flashlights, turned them straight up at the sky, and it lit up the whole room. It was actually very cool. And they continued to do the whole sampling. And of course, you couldn't see the color or anything, but the whole room just smells like whiskey anyway. So it was pretty nice. It was an event. And by the last dram, the lights came back on. So it was nice. Perfect timing. Yeah.
Have you done many distillery tours yet?
Not really. Actually, oddly enough, I've been to more wineries than I have distilleries, and I haven't even been to that many wineries. That is something that I'm hoping to do soon. Fans of the channel will know that's on the docket for this year. I've got some pretty cool plans. I've reached out to a few smaller craft distilleries I personally find those a little bit more interesting. Like, obviously, it'd be cool to go to something like the new McKellen, that new McKellen distillery. That'd be fantastic. But even just doing the Bourbon Trail would be very cool. My wife actually was telling me a few days ago that she was like, I would love to go do the Bourbon Trail with you. I don't really like whiskey, but it'd be fun to watch you like enjoy this stuff and just kind of go on a vacation. I'm like, you don't even want to see how annoying I'm going to be with my camera and like running
That's
around
the real
talking
question
to people.
Tonight is, does your wife hate your channel or is she supportive?
Well,
or a little bit of both, like mine. She loves and
say,
hates it all at the same time.
No, she is exceptionally supportive. I will say that. I think if it weren't as successful as it was, I think she'd be a little less supportive. but
maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's what my wife is.
Well,
buy lots of expensive whiskey and don't make any money in return.
Well, I was gonna say, as you were saying earlier, at least you're buying all stuff that like you want to drink. I buy stuff I want to drink, but it's more calculated, I guess, if you want to consider it that. But like when you're like, 25-year-old, whatever, I'm jealous of that, because I'm like, I bought a $40 bottle of bourbon I didn't like. So, but anyway, so my wife is very supportive of the channel, but when she sees me on my phone or whatever, she's like, "Are you whiskey dicking around?" Which I freaking think that's so funny.
By the way, that's an awesome name.
Thank you very much.
I didn't come up with it. That's awesome.
I can't even tell you how happy I was when I came up with that. There was no question. I was just like, all right, what am I going to name my channel? And I started thinking about funny things, and I was like, well, I can extend dick to just be dictionary, and that totally makes sense. So bingo.
How long ago did you start your channel, and kind of what was your passion or your idea? Like, what made you want to start it?
That's a fun question. So I was actually just earlier today, I was looking at my analytics, and I was wondering when I put out my very first video, because I started the channel in like September of 2014, but I didn't put out a video until it was March 16th of 2015. So I'm considering that the birthday of the channel.
Nice. You're doing something right.
Thank you that much. I owe a lot of it to that Conor McGregor video. That helped a lot. That was... So I don't know if I know you probably know of Food Quig. Did you happen to see the whole thing that happened with him?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
I love it. That is like the funniest video. And she was like, bye. Bye. It goes right back.
I can't say it's the way I would want to be represented, but if that had happened in my life and it could get him another like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, over 1 million views, he's got the biggest video of all of the whiskey tubers, even more so than the Whiskey Vault. They don't have anything at 1 million yet.
Yeah.
Close,
the best part was that he had no idea.
No, so I know, that was so
he's getting texts from all of us, and he's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And we're like, "Dude, you're famous. You've gone viral, bro." Quig's a good guy, man. Something that people don't know about him.
Yeah,
he has an amazing palate. You can kind of tell. I think people who really, really enjoy whiskey, when people give like really flowery descriptions, I mean, everybody, it's subjective. It's really what you get. So who can tell anybody, no, you don't get that? But when I literally drink a nose and I'm listening to his videos, I'm like, this dude has like the most amazing palate and literally can tell all these notes, because I get everything that he says.
I totally agree with you. I've always found Food Quig to be extremely astute in his descriptions, for sure. So there's one person in the chat that I want to just call out. So Maritime US. So this guy, he was out in San Diego the last time I was out there, and I did like a very small meetup. Excuse me, it was like last minute at this place called the Whiskey House, which is in San Diego, which apparently has actually, I think as of January of this month, like a week ago, they had enough bottles to be considered for the Guinness Book of World Records as having the largest whiskey collection in the world.
Really?
When I was out there the last time, they had the second largest, and they said, "Hey, we're having the guy from Guinness Book of World Records out at the end of January to kind of see all of our stuff." And they said, "We have enough bottles to be the largest, but they have to be on a shelf in order to count," or something like that. Or visible, I think was the word that they used. So it's funny because they have the place. I mean, you walk in and it's really cool. There's shelving everywhere, and you look around, and I gotta give them some credit, like just organizing all of that into a way that makes any sort of sense. I found that they did a pretty good job, because you would look around and you'd be like, okay, let me think of something amazing. It's like, okay, Springbank, right? And so I'd be like, oh, there's the Springbank section. There's like 15 different expressions. It's like, I didn't even know they did that. Like I've never even heard of half of these. And then you'd be like, all right, something shitty. All right, Black Velvet. And you look, and there's like 7 of them over there. It's Black Velvet does not make 7 different. Like nobody wants more than one. Nobody even wants one. So
I don't think I've ever had Black Velvet.
Oh, don't bother.
I'm not missing out, huh?
No, God, no. It's an extremely inexpensive Canadian whiskey that is. It was. I had it as a joke essentially. I made a comment about like, hey, somebody suggest a really good Canadian whiskey, because I sometimes make fun of Canadian whiskey. There's not a lot of good ones that make it to the U.S. Apparently, most of them stay up in Canada, and I was like, recommend me one. I don't mind reaching out to somebody, like a viewer from Canada, having them ship it or whatever. And people were like, Black Velvet, Black Velvet, Black Velvet. And I kind of caught onto the joke a little bit, but I embraced it. And I went to the store and I bought a bottle of Black Velvet. By the way, aged 8 years for $11.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
They actually age it for 8 years and it's that bad?
So,
wow.
So they have, I think they have regular Black Velvet, which I might have been right. I think it's like 6 years, and that's $13. But then they have Black Velvet Select. I got that wrong. 6 years is $11. Black Velvet Select is 8 years for $13. For an extra $2, you can get an extra 2 years. So tells you everything you need to know about it. So I embraced it, did the video on it, and it was good. So speaking of videos, so you've done a couple recently, one of which I really, really liked. You did kind of like your top 5 go back to whiskeys recently, which I know is a thing that the Scotch Test Dummies started and most of us embraced. Talk about that video, though, because I really thought that was a good one.
So, obviously, Scotch Test Dummies, they sent out the challenge, so we all did it. Unfortunately, because I have young kids, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I work pretty late hours. I'm a mental health. You have young kids, too?
4 and 2.
Seriously?
Yeah. How old are you?
I am 30. I think I'm 35.
Me too. I turned 36 in May.
Nice. 36.
Don't tell me your birthday's in May.
So anyways, young kids, I'm a mental health therapist, retired from the Coast Guard, and I work like 8 till like 7 a lot of times with like no break. That's the big reason why I couldn't reply, is because when I'm in session, sometimes I have no break. I have like a 10-minute lunch. So like literally and then I get home immediately. My wife's, help me with the kids.
Of course.
So anyways, so I don't always have a whole lot of time to edit and do all the thumbnails, but I've decided, I want to start doing a little bit more quality instead of just having fun, releasing lower quality. I know what it is, but we have fun. We're drinking whiskey, but I wanted to do a little bit better. So I was like, what, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to try and do it, with music and do all that. So it was fun. It was a lot better watching myself with more quality than my usual.
I totally. Remind me after the stream to talk to you about that one particular point, because I have some really good advice for you. So
awesome.
Yeah. So the rest of you can't know it.
Does it mean I'll get 30K subscribers?
At least a tenth of that.
So going back to the crappy whiskey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's the worst whiskey that you've ever had? While you're thinking of it, I'm going to go grab the one that is the worst whiskey I've ever had.
Okay. I no longer
have 3 seconds.
Yes, no problem. So while he's doing that, let me check out the chat. I've been mostly ignoring the chat tonight, so I apologize to you guys. But let's see. Actually, this is going to be fun. Anybody in the chat, put in your worst whiskey that you've ever had as well, and we'll all compare notes. So you have a prop, but so I'll let you go in a second. But so to answer your question, actually, I would say probably Black Velvet. As many jokes as I make about Johnny Walker Red, Black Velvet was much worse. So go ahead. So what do you got?
I'm sorry. I just read a comment from Go Habs. He says, you guys are only 35. You guys look like crap. Hey, man, I served in the military and I had back surgery, so I can't work out as much as I want to, all right?
Right? I mean, I have excuses. And we both have young kids. We don't get any chance to work out. That's the real excuse, is that we
love
can't.
You too, Go Habs.
So Go Habs, you haven't asked me to equip a certain accessory yet tonight, so I haven't done it. But, might have to happen. All right. So what is your worst whiskey?
Worst whiskey I've ever had came courtesy of George Kaplan. It is J. Riddle Heated Bourbon, the spirit of Detroit.
Oh, Lord.
So George is really, really kind. George and Amy are really kind to our channel.
Yeah.
He sends me a lot of times huge samples and even whole bottles at times.
Nice.
This was a joke. So we had met up after he sent me some samples, and I had it, and I literally wanted to throw up. It was the worst tasting thing. It literally was like wood the slightest hint of caramel and like crap. Like it was the most. I can't even describe how bad it is. I'll save some. So if we ever meet up, you can have some of this bad boy.
So you said you're in Ohio, right?
I like the idea of a peated bourbon. Like I'm glad that they're experimenting and trying it, but it did not work. Jay Riddle is a no-go.
So Jay Riddle peated bourbon.
Yep.
Just I can't. I'm racking my brain to think of any other bourbons that are peated, and nothing's coming to mind. I've seen a couple of like American whiskeys that have done it. I haven't tried them yet, but nothing about that sounds like a good idea because you're already getting charred oak. I can't imagine the two play well together. But I love the fox on the front of that. By the way, it's so low quality, it's hilarious.
So we got a bunch of people telling us their crappiest whiskey. You want to read them off?
Sure, yeah. So, all right. So I did see a couple Johnny Walker Reds in there, which is great. Now, the funny thing is, I'm looking at this, and I've had a good portion of these on the channel. I don't know. Maybe I'm a masochist. I like doing crap whiskeys. They're hilarious to me. All right. So we got Black Velvet, Canadian Mist. That's, J&B Rare I've done. Black Velvet I've done. Glyph Molecular Whiskey. I've never heard of that. Tin Cup. That's surprising. I never considered Tin Cup to be very good, but I've heard people who like it. So, Johnny Walker Red, Wilson's, Seagram's 7. That I could see. Seagram's is tough because it's usually the only or one of very few whiskeys that are available at like weddings. So you kind of have to make do. Like I do 7 and 7 a lot at a wedding because it's one way to kind of cover it up. DJ Bacon says Glenfiddich Fire and Cane. Now I've heard of Fire and Cane being terrible, and every time I see it, I'm tempted to buy it. They did a really good job with their marketing, but apparently it doesn't taste very good. Cutty Sark, a bunch of other ones. So interesting. Yeah. You were starting to tell a story about the top 5 whiskeys, and then we totally derailed each other. But before we get into that, so a bunch of people are asking how the Bruichladdich is. We totally derailed ourselves from that, which is
we did.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's a good little entry point into conversation. So, all right. So let's go into your top 5 whiskeys, and then but before we do that, let's talk about the Bruichladdich a little bit more. You mentioned that you had a couple of like fun facts or whatever. Anything about Bruichladdich, or was it just general?
Just kind of talking about when it was opened, when it was shut, the different types. You know about the different brands. Port Charlotte is like heavily peated. Bruichladdich is the unpeated, and then the Octomore, which is still called Bruichladdich Octomore, is their super heavily peated. And then I was just kind of talking about how they do everything the right way. Cool fact is Port Charlotte, a lot of their stills and the things that they use is still like the old Victorian equipment. So it's like 100-year-old, which is really fascinating. And like their new make spirit is special because this is a pretty young whiskey. The classic Laddie. It's probably 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 years old. You can kind of tell because there's a little metallic note, which for me is normally an indicator that it's kind of youthful. Not always, but at least that's what I tend to pick up when it's a little bit younger.
I actually get that more in the nose than I do in the taste. That
metallic
that you were I did pick up on that as well. And but the last thing I wanted to do was say that classic Bruichladdich tasted young, because it doesn't taste bad young. Whereas like that Conor McGregor Proper 12, that thing should have rested for another like 5 years. That would have been good. But
so this one right here, I bet you this would be amazing if this was 12 or 15 years. I think this would be a phenomenal whiskey.
They should do that.
The problem is so when they started not that long ago. I think it was when they started remaking. I think 2001-ish around there, maybe a little bit later. So stock is an issue. You got to let it sit for a long time, and then in the beginning you're trying to make money, so you're trying to sell some of the younger whiskey and then set some aside to age for even longer. So I feel bad for them, and I'm not trying to ding them for it because I actually love Bruichladdich, and that's why I'm willing to buy their younger stuff because I support what they're doing.
Makes sense. Yeah, if I remember correctly from that tasting, like there's not even a lot of people that work there. I think it was a pretty small group of people. But I remember them mentioning that their equipment was super old. They didn't say how old though. That's incredible that it's like that old and it's maintained. Yeah. I just feel like there can't be that many people who even know how to support those stills. So
I don't think they have. It's all like hand run. They have no computers except for like I think obviously on the marketing side they have computers and stuff.
Like branding,
the actual distillery. Last I read, there's no computers. It's all handmade, which
that's crazy.
Is awesome. I don't know. I'm a big fan of the craft distilleries like Springbank, Kilhoman, obviously Bruichladdich. I don't know. I'm just a fan of when they're actually. It's not mass produced. I kind of. Those aren't my favorite whiskeys. The mass produced ones.
I'm totally with you. I love the craft stuff and more just like from the business standpoint of doing this, like they're way more interesting to talk to. Like a lot of times if I'm talking to somebody like say like Macallan or whatever, it's a distributor that happens to have a bunch of bottles. If I talk to like I did a review on 2 Bar Spirits, and I remember I talked to there's 4 people that run that shop, and I talked to 3 of them, and the other guy was a temp. So it's like it was actually very like on the phone. I remember talking to this one woman, I forget her name, and then she was like, "Hey, you want to talk to like the owner?" And I'm like, "Sure. When can he be on the phone?" And she's like, "No. Here's Jeff." Like, "Oh, hey Jeff, what's going on? I'm Bill." Yep. So I love that about the craft distillery because it's a person who loved whiskey enough to do a thing about it, and yep. I think that's very cool.
And I think they appreciate their customers more, I think.
I agree. Yeah. So I'm going to pour one more dram of this, but for like the 7th time now, because we keep derailing ourselves. So you picked those top 5 go back to whiskeys. What were they? I watched your video earlier tonight, so I know the answer.
Come on, you don't remember? Come on, Bill. So I did I did a Klein Leash 1995 Signatory cast strength. Signatory is an independent bottler. They don't. It's not a distillery. It's just a company that buys whiskey from the different distilleries, and then they put it into their cask, and then they typically age it in their own warehouses. And their cast strength collection is amazing. So I actually didn't say the one whiskey. I just said the whole cast strength collection from Signatory.
That's right. Because I remember your very first one. I was like, that's such a cop out.
And then I did it again in my third one. And then I think, let's see, what's the other one I did? I did Long Row. Obviously, I had to have a Long Row or a Springbank in my video because I'm obsessed with them. I did Lagavulin 8. I love Lagavulin. They have this chicken noodle umami chicken noodle broth.
What?
I know it sounds crazy. I swear. So Lagavulin 8, you get all that vanilla like bourbon stuff from the bourbon cask. There's something like syrupy. I don't even know how to. I know it's like chicken noodle broth, and I'm telling you.
I trust your judgment, but I gotta say that's the second weirdest note
chicken
that I've
noodle
ever heard. The other one was somebody specifically saying birthday cake because it's got to be not only cake, it's the birthday cake. Like it's not just a cake you might happen to buy. It's got to be on your birthday.
Sure.
But chicken noodle umami, I'm gonna remember that.
It's a brothiness. So
yeah, no,
like
I get
bouillon
it.
cubes. Funny. I know.
Yes, yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, try Lagavulin 8 or Lagavulin 12.
That actually makes more sense. Now that
try Lagavulin 8 or Lagavulin 12, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I put Bruichladdich 18, and actually I had their most recent. So they did a rebranding recently.
Yep.
And I had decided to put Bruichladdich 18 in my top 5 before I had actually tasted the new one. Mm-hmm. And the new one is still good, but it probably wouldn't have made my top 5 if I would have tasted the new one. Because probably people are like, what are you talking about? This new one, but the old one actually had older whiskey. It was like 21, 22-year-old, and it was freaking phenomenal. Nice. And the new one's good, but I probably wouldn't have made my top 5 if I had tasted the new bottle more recently. And let's see, what else did I do? I did like about 8. Springbank 12 cast strength, which I've been trying to get you to get.
That was I was looking right at it. So for those of you who were here earlier when I was talking about being in the liquor store, talking to Keith about it, I had the cast strength in my hand and I just couldn't pull the trigger because what was it, like $110, something like that, and I couldn't do it, and I should have done it because it sounds fantastic, and I'll probably do it sooner than later. But as we were kind of talking about earlier, Scotch, I love to review it on the channel. It's not my forte. Oftentimes I spend longer tasting a Scotch before I feel comfortable doing a video on it where I can speak intelligently about it.
Yeah.
Whereas bourbon, I pretty much like, I can pour a bourbon and I'd be like, all right, I've already know it's going to taste like these 3 things. What else is in there? So, anyway, so, all right. So the cast strength is something that you would highly recommend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. By the way, thank you, Doug. I appreciate that very much. Appreciate it. So we've had a lot of chatter in here in the chat. I actually have, because of the Google Hangouts, I have no idea how many people are actually watching the stream. Oh, never mind. I take it back. It's really, really tiny right at the bottom. At the moment, we have 57 people. I think there were probably a little bit more about just based off of the chat earlier. One cool thing, I think it was Craig. This a total tangent here, but Craig, I think it was you that posted a picture in the Discord about you with like your Bruichladdich and my stream in the background, and I showed it to my wife, and she actually, it was one of the first times I've seen on her face where she actually kind of got how people appreciate this channel. You know, it was a cool thing. She was like, that is so cool. And so thank you, Craig. You made me look good in front of my wife. I appreciate that. So we're coming up on about 10 o'clock or so. So why don't you take a sec and just tell people who you are, what you do, and where they can find you, and all of that.
So me and my buddy Dave, as I said before, I started the channel, but my buddy Dave has now joined and likes to come mooch my whiskey. We review Scotch, Bourbon, Irish, pretty much anything we can get our hands on that, like I said, I kind of just buy what sounds good to me. I don't typically buy crappy whiskey or something I'm not interested in. I probably need to. That's probably why I don't have very many subscribers. But you can check us out on YouTube at The Malted Man Cave. We'd love to have you guys watch. Appreciate you, buddy, for having me on. That was very kind of you.
Absolutely. It was actually a great hangout. So I will say one thing. So anybody who happens to be watching this, either now or in the future, if we get Keith here and his channel up to 1,000 subscribers, today is Friday. So if we get this by February 1st, if we get him 1,000 subscribers, I will do something very special. I don't know what that is yet, but it will. I would guarantee you it will be worth it, because I want him to hit that 1,000 subscribers more than you guys understand.
Thanks, buddy.
It'll be something probably painful for myself, probably a terrible whiskey, just as a courtesy. So
I can send you some of this peated bourbon if you want some.
You know what? Hell yeah! If you hit all right, that's the deal. So if he hits 1,000,
how about I give this bottle away?
If he hits 1,000 subscribers, I will review that whiskey. That's the deal. I love it. Perfect. All right, cool. So 9:57, roughly an hour or so. So thank you everybody very much for joining here on the Whiskey Dictionary. Thank you very much to everybody who gave a super chat, and thank you, Keith, for being a guest on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, have a great night, everybody. Cheers.